Donald Trump is making a major staff change today. The campaign announced that it will part with Corey Lewandowski, Trump's campaign manager.
Now, this comes as Donald Trump was scheduled to meet with advisors to reassess his strategy going forward. A statement released today reads, "The campaign is grateful to Corey for his hard work and dedication, and we wish him the best in the future."
Well, here to break down the news of the day is Leslie Sanchez. She is a CBSN political contributor. So, Leslie, does this come as a surprise at all to you?
It's not a surprise, but it is certainly a relief to many of the individuals who have been working as surrogates for the Trump campaign, and certainly some other operatives. There's some bad blood, no doubt, of people that were with the Trump organization and then got pushed out by Corey. So there's not a lot of tears being wept, I could say that.
So, Leslie, what are you hearing from your sources within the party, within the campaign? Because on one hand, it appears to political insiders that maybe this has a lot to do with the fact that Donald Trump's poll numbers are not doing so well, that he doesn't have a good ground game for a national campaign as opposed to a primary campaign. On the other hand, we're also hearing that this may also have to do with just personality clashes with Corey Lewandowski and other people within the campaign itself. And so less to do with the polls and less to do with can Donald Trump actually defeat Hillary Clinton, and more to do with people don't think that he gets along with other staffers on the campaign.
I think whatever it comes down to, Vlad, it's probably a combination of both. And by that is there something clearly had to change. You are starting to see slippage in poll numbers, though they're not very reliable in June, certainly. It's not a positive sign. And we have seen the Trump organization make dramatic changes when they start to see that the momentum is not going in the right direction. So we've seen that before. But what we do know, and what my sources tell me, is there has been a constant civil war within the Trump campaign. They call it the, quote unquote, the White House apprentice. And it was the Paul Manafort campaign against Corey Lewandowski camp, and whatever side you were on was a very difficult effort for each of these individuals who are either raising money, surrogates for the operation, or trying to build a ground game. They are all it was very high stress internally for the people that are supposed to be carrying the water for your organization. And leading to the convention, which is a month away, a lot of frustration about who's going to be there, who's taking charge. And you saw that what they say is that Corey was still very much trying to be involved in the strategy versus the day-to-day. So it just compounded the anxiety and the leadership approach within the campaign.
We're also sort of hearing reports that Trump's own children may have been instrumental in having the campaign part ways with Corey Lewandowski. Are you hearing anything around those in that area?
Definitely hearing the same thing, that there's a lot of people that are very obviously closest to Trump, and it was his family that rallied around. There were some reports that Corey was having problems with their press secretary, and it was a very contentious situation. That's putting it lightly. And that needed to end. And fundamentally, this had been in the works for a long time. I also want to say that this is not unusual for organizations to change. If you can think about 1980, Ronald Reagan fired John Sears, his campaign manager, right after New Hampshire, and they brought in William Casey, who ended up leading them to a massive victory. And Bob Dole could never kind of get the right mix in 96 of who his campaign team would be. Interestingly enough, Paul Manafort was part of that team. So there's a lot of movement that goes on. You don't like to see it, but the candidate fundamentally has to make those decisions for whatever motivation that's going to keep the organization organized and lead them to victory. And that right now there was so much dysfunction still coming out in terms of style and clashing that it really needed to end.
Leslie, Donald Trump's numbers, poll numbers, have gotten worse over the last week or so. Even if he brings in a new person to help him run this ground game for this national election, even if he starts to spend at the level that Hillary Clinton is spending, for example, on ads. But Mr. Trump himself has said that he's probably not going to do that, that he feels that he gets all of his the ad money that he would be spending comes from media publicity. Can he still make up all this lost territory?
You know, he can. There's a lot that can go back and forth because you're looking at two flawed candidates. I don't think you have a lot of people excited about the Republican or the Democrat. You have the people that are the party loyalists that like their individual candidates, but there's a lot of frustration around Hillary Clinton. Her negatives are extremely high. What you are seeing on the Trump side is that there needs to be a coherent campaign that can bring together independents, ensure that Republican women stay under the Republican tent, and really solidify that it's a solution-oriented campaign. That's a big challenge. It's a big lift. And the question is, can this campaign really put that together? The convention is going to be the first big test to show that. So there's a lot of movement. No one's really solidified. And there's a chance to really make up ground on both sides. But this is going to be a very heated, very close, more than most people think, election.
Do you think moving forward, though, the Trump campaign and those working within the campaign will continue to clash about the strategy?
You know, today I am hearing from the folks I'm talking to who are the closest and who work within the campaign that they feel this is going to alleviate a lot of that. That they'll have one head, meaning Paul Manafort. They can get behind this. He's going to lead the direction. They'll add, obviously, the big concern right now is if Manafort was focused on the convention itself, there really needs to be a day-to-day operation. So there's still a doling of responsibilities from top operatives that need to be assigned.
Leslie,
go ahead.
So, Leslie, you know, you talked about two flawed candidates here, but one thing that Hillary Clinton has is that Clinton campaign machinery. It's tight, it's large, she's on the ground everywhere, there's a lot of money. Donald Trump has a very short period of time to ramp up to that level. What does he need to do to pull that off?
And he's also at a lower position than any other general election candidate in the last 3 elections.
Right.
No, it's true, but I think the advantage is we have to look to the Republican National Committee, right? This isn't just the campaign. It's going to be the victory fund. It's going to be the party. If we had, as Republicans, the operation in 2012 that exists today, many argue that Mitt Romney would be president because of the get out the vote operation, the data mining, the targeting, the really touch points to get to voters and move them to the polls on Election Day. So there's a lot of elements that go into it. A lot of money has been raised around that, and I'd argue that the Republican operation is much more succinct and effective and ready for November than the Democratic one, which is still very disorganized. You have a lot of people trying to look for a political coup within the DNC. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and this is such a non-traditional year. Yes, Donald Trump is tweeting his way to the White House. You can argue, but is that going to be enough? The question is, a lot of us cover it, and he gets a tremendous amount of media attention because of that. So it's not a traditional conventional campaign, and for that reason, the dollars, if you wanted to just look at dollars, Jeb Bush should be the nominee. They spent $100 million punching down at other Republican contenders as opposed to punching up to the front runner, meaning Donald Trump, and it got them nowhere. So money is not the only answer this election cycle.
So, Leslie, Corey Lewandowski is out, and a lot of people are talking about, again, as we have been, about Trump's poll numbers, about, the need to build a much bigger ground campaign, ground game if he's going to go up against the Clinton machine. But let's also talk about some of the things that may have contributed to that, right? Donald Trump, for weeks, spent that entire period of time after those job numbers came out that weren't so great for President Obama, going after Judge Curiel. There was the gloating the morning after 49 people were killed in Orlando, gloating on Twitter that he was right. A lot of people didn't see that as something becoming of a presidential candidate. He said repeatedly now in the last couple of days that he doesn't need the establishment Republican Party. And now you've got Paul Ryan sort of wishy-washy. Yes, he endorses him, but no, he doesn't agree with anything that he says. I mean, can we also sort of agree that it's the candidate himself and not just necessarily the people that are running his campaign?
It's true. And this may be a case, Vlad, where Corey is definitely the fall guy for a lot of these missteps. He may be the scapegoat. He may have lost too many internal arguments, and that's why he's out. It could be maybe a combination of all those things. But there are some serious missteps that the candidate has had so far. I think for his base that is truly loyal to him, they don't see that, and they think this is just the style that he has, his leadership style, and they're going to stick with him through November. But it is exactly what you're saying. It's the rest of the voters who tend to be Republican voters, but may be extremely concerned about Trump's style, especially his bona fides in the foreign policy arena. Can he get the job done well? And I don't think we can underestimate Donald Trump in any capacity. He's really managed to build a top mobilized organization. He's got the media attention, but there's a lot of frustration within the party establishment to do things the way they've been done before, and at least have civility within this campaign, and not make it about personal attacks, especially on race, ethnicity, religion, gender, any of those, which he has done. So the party has a long way to go.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, again, Mr. Trump on Twitter today talking about the New York Times not giving him the numbers that he had at his rallies, that they didn't, show the pictures
the
of
media,
the people attending his rallies. That seems to be the most important thing on his mind these days. Leslie Sanchez, CBSN political contributor. As always, we thank you.